Moyen or welcome. Hello and welcome. This podcast is for motivated people who want to improve their Luxembourgish vocabulary, listening skills, and fluency by listening to compelling content. I'm Anne, your dedicated host and the driving force behind Luxembourgish with Anne, with a true passion for teaching my mother tongue since 2012. In this dynamic podcast, I'll share with you interesting short vocabulary lessons and topic conversations from level A1 to B1, and together we will build a strong foundation of the language you need to speak with confidence about everyday life topics. I also share exclusive learning strategies and insights for the Sproochentest oral exam. So join me on this exciting Luxembourgish learning journey. Bist du prêt? Are you ready? Welcome! So welcome to this new episode. And today you will learn 8 easy steps how to introduce yourself in Luxembourgish. This episode might be very useful if you have to introduce yourself briefly for a job interview or an oral language test, for example, the language test to get the Luxembourgish citizenship, or at any other occasion. At the end of this episode, I will illustrate these 8 steps with one introduction example. Bist du prêt? Are you ready? Dann los! Of course, we will start by telling your name. So name is in Luxembourgish num. Num. And to say my name, you will say mijn num. And then you add your name. Mijn num is Anne. Mijn num is Anne. My name is Anne. Or if you are a man, you would say mijn num is Tom. Let's repeat together. Mijn num is Tom. And more naturally, mijn num is Tom. There is another possibility to tell your name by saying I am Anne in Luxembourgish is ich bin Dan. Let's repeat. Ich bin Dan. Let's imagine that your first name is Natalie. Then you'd say ich bin Natalie. So you use a D apostrophe. This is the definite article before first feminine noun. If you are a man and you want to say I am Tom, you would say ich bin den Tom. Ich bin den Tom. So you use the definite masculine article before your first name. Let's repeat this second possibility. So to say I am Anne is ich bin Dan. I am Tom is ich bin den Tom. Great. Now you know how to tell your name, and then you will, of course, continue by saying, where do you come from? So if you want to say that I come from England, for example, you would say, ich komme aus England. Ich komme aus England. I come from England. So here we have the verb kommen, to come. I come is ich komme. And then you use the preposition aus plus your home country. Let's imagine that you come from India. How would you say I come from India? Hopefully you've said ich komme aus Indien. Ich komme aus Indien. Or maybe you come from South Africa. Then you would say ich komme aus Südafrika. Yeah? And here I recommend to add on your nationality. For example, you can say, ich komme aus England, ich bin Engländer. Engländer, I'm English if you're a man. And if you're a woman, you would add in at the end, ich bin Engländerin. The same, for example, you come from India, you would say, ich komme aus Indien, ich bin Inder. Or you can say, ich bin Inderin if you are a woman. So I can't now name all the countries and the nationalities, but you can look it up in the online dictionary, the Luxembourgish online dictionary, www.lod.lu, and then you will know how to tell your nationality, and even you can listen to the pronunciation of the country and the nationality. Good. Let's move on and learn how to tell your age. So to say I am 30 years old, you would say ich bin 30 Jahre alt. So I am is ich bin 30 Jahre alt, 30 years old. So it's literally the literal translation from English. Ich bin 30 Jahre alt. You can also say in Luxembourgish, I have 30 years. It's the same. So you would say, ich hun 30 Jahre. Ich hun is I have. 30 Jahre. Okay, let's repeat the two possibilities. So you can either say, I am 30 years old, which is, yes, ich bin 30 Jahre alt. And do you remember how to say, I have 30 years? Yes, this is ich hun 30 Jahre. Good. Let's move on with step number 4. When you introduce yourself, it is important to share your family situation, whether you are single or married, whether you have children or not. So to say that you are married, you would say, ich bin bestört. So let's repeat this. Ich bin bestört. Bestört means married, okay? And in natural spoken Luxembourgish, we would drop the final N of Sinn, because we have an N rule. You can check this on my blog, on my webpage. And then you would say, ich sie bestört. Ich sie bestört. And more naturally, ich sie bestört. Let's repeat. Ich sie bestört. And maybe you have 2 children. Now you know already how to say I have. This is ich hun. And then you would add on 2 Kinder. 2 Kinder are 2 children. So let's make the whole sentence. Ich sie bestört an hun 2 Kinder. Or you can say ich sie bestört an ich hun 2 Kinder. But here after an, you don't need to repeat the ich. Okay? Maybe you are married, but you don't have children. So then you would say, ich sie bestört, aber ich hu kein Kinder. Donc, aber ich hu kein Kinder means, but I have no children. Okay? Maybe you are single. Then you would say, ich sie single. Ich sie single. Or you can say, ich bin Junggesell, this is old-fashioned, or ich bin Junggesellin if you are a woman. I would just stick with ich sie single. And maybe you are divorced, then you would say, ich sie geschieden. Ich sie geschieden. Okay, good. So I'm married, ich sie bestört. I'm single is ich sie single. And I'm divorced is ich sie geschieden. Good. Step number 5 is to say where you live. So you will need to say, I live, and then plus your city or your village. For example, if you want to say that you live in Bertrange, you would say, ich wohnen zu Bertrange. Ich wohnen zu Bertrange. Ich wohnen is I live. You use the preposition zu plus your village or your city, and then you add on your village. Ich wohnen zu Bertrange. Easy, isn't it? Or maybe you live in Mama. How do you say I live in Mama? Yes, this is ich wohnen zu Mama. Good. But now let's imagine that you live in Luxembourg City. Then we use another preposition. Then you would have to say, ich wohnen an der Stadt. Let's repeat together. Ich wohnen an der Stadt. So to say, I live in Luxembourg City is ich wohnen an der Stadt. Remember it just as it is. And if you live in a village or another city, you would use the preposition zu. For example, you live maybe in Esch, then you'd say, ich wohnen zu Esch. Or more precisely, ich wohnen zu Esch Uelzest. Good? Okay. Step number 6. I speak, because you want to say the languages you speak. So how do you say I speak in Luxembourgish? Do you know that? This is ech schwätzen. Ech schwätzen. Let's repeat this because it's not easy to pronounce. Ech schwätzen. For example, if you want to say that you speak, for example, Spanish, then you would say ech schwätzen Spanisch. Ech schwätzen Spanisch. And then more naturally, we would drop the N of schwätzen, and then it would sound like this. Ech schwätze Spanisch. Or even to say that you speak English, you would say ech schwätzen Englisch. Ech schwätzen Englisch. And maybe you want to say that you speak a little bit of Luxembourgish, then you would say ech schwätzen a bisschen Luxembourgish. Let's repeat the pronunciation of Luxembourgish for the language. Luxembourgish. Luxembourgish. Good. So, and a little Luxembourgish is a bisschen Luxembourgish. Let's repeat the whole sentence. Ech schwätzen a bisschen Luxembourgish. Good. Okay. Step number 7. Your job. Or what you have studied at the university. So then you would just say, it's very easy, you say ich bin, so I am, ich bin, and then you say what you are. For example, you can say ich bin Übersetzer. Oder ich bin Übersetzerin if you are a translator, for example. Or maybe you are an Informatiker. Ich bin Informatiker, and if you are a woman, ich bin Informatikerin. So be careful here, we don't add any article before the function, okay? So einfach ich bin and then what you are. Maybe you are a manager, you would say ich bin Manager, if you are a man, and if you are a woman, you would say ich bin Managerin. Maybe you are a student, you would say ich bin Student. And if you are a woman, ich bin Studentin. Ich bin Studentin. Or maybe you don't work at the moment, then you would say ich schaffen the moment nicht. Ich schaffen the moment nicht means I don't work at the moment. Good. And now the last step, step number 8, you would briefly mention your hobbies. To say my hobbies are is Meng Hobbyen sind. Meng Hobbyen sind. For example, Meng Hobbyen sie Sport machen. Donc my hobbies are to do sports. Donc Sport machen. Oder Meng Hobbyen sie Musik lauschen a lesen. Donc Musik lauschen, to listen to music, a lesen. Lesen is to read. So let's repeat these 3 hobbies. Meng Hobbyen sie Sport machen, Musik lauschen, a lesen. Good. Now that you have learned the 8 steps how to best introduce yourself, we will illustrate this with an example. I will first read this introduction in slow spoken Luxembourgish and then in normal spoken Luxembourgish. Bist du prêt? Dann los. Mein Name ist Dimitri. Ich komme aus Russland und ich bin natürlich Russ. Ich habe 38 Jahre und ich bin Englischprof. Ich bin bestuurt und habe gekannt. Meine Frau und ich wohnen seit 8 Jahren zu Lützeburg an der Stadt. Ich schwätze Englisch, Russisch, ein bisschen Französisch und lo lehren ich Lützeburgisch. Mein Hobby sind Velofahren, Kochen, Freunde treffen und Gitarre spielen. And now more naturally. Mein Name ist Dimitri. Ich komme aus Russland und ich bin natürlich Russ. Ich habe 38 Jahre und ich bin Englischprof. Ich bin bestuurt und habe gekannt. Meine Frau und ich wohnen seit 8 Jahren zu Lützeburg an der Stadt. Ich schwätze Englisch, Russisch, ein bisschen Französisch und lo lehren ich Lützeburgisch. Mein Hobby sind Velofahren, Kochen, Freunde treffen und Gitarre spielen. Now to finish this episode, just let's break it down and I will explain you some new vocabulary. Yeah? He said, so Dimitri said, ich bin natürlich Russ. Ich komme aus Russland und ich bin natürlich Russ. Natürlich means of course. Of course, I'm of course Russian, yeah. And then he said, ich sie bestuert an hun Kant. So remember, ich sie bestuert is I am married. An hun Kant means and I have one child. So he could have said, ich sie bestuert an ich hun Kant, but you don't need to repeat here the ich after an. Then you would say, ich sie bestuert an hun Kant. Then he said, Meng Frau anish is my wife and I. Okay. Now, if you are a woman, you can say my Mann anish. My Mann is my husband. Okay. And then he said, Meng Frau anish wohnen seit 8 Jahren zu Lützeburg an der Stadt. This means that my wife and I have been living since 8 years in Luxembourg, the country, in Luxembourg City. So if you want to be precise and you are living in Luxembourg City, you can say, ich wohne an der Stadt zu Lützeburg. And then what did he say? What was new for you? Yes, an elo lehren ich Lützeburgisch. This means, and now I learn Luxembourgish. An elo lehren ich Lützeburgisch. Maybe you can remember this sentence. It's very useful. And then he finished his introduction with Meng Hobby sie Velofuhren. Velofuhren, it's to cycle. Kachen to cook. Friend treffen, to meet friends. Guitar spielen, that's easy to understand, to play the guitar. Now use these 8 steps to introduce you perfectly the next time you need to do so. So follow here my useful learning tips, which helped so many of my students to gain confidence. So first, write down your introduction by following these 8 steps. Then read aloud your introduction several times. And then once you feel good, record yourself and then listen, of course, to your recording. And if you are not satisfied, delete it and record yourself a further time. And you can repeat this until you are satisfied with the result. And then the final step is to say aloud your introduction without reading your notes. Okay, then you will really feel the confidence you have gained with this method to introduce yourself. Good. So, das alles für heute. So, that's all for today. And in my self-study online course A1 Foundation, you will learn much more vocabulary on how to best introduce yourself. And remember that by listening and reading at the same time, new vocabulary, new sentences helps you to figure out how to pronounce Luxembourgish and to better memorize words. For more details about my self-study online course A1 Foundation, you will find the link in the show notes below this episode. Adi, bis nächste Woche.